If you find yourself spending more time recovering from back pain after barbell bent over rows, today's video is for you. I'm gonna show you 5 specific barbell bent over row alternatives that I know you're gonna love. One of the biggest frustrations I see people navigating is how to apply exercise to a painful back. So what I did is I created a free guide. It's called my Pain-Free Training Blueprint. You can get it at fitnessforbackpain.com/pain-free training. In this free guide, I'm gonna show you exactly the way I approach exercise with a painful back situation. I ruptured my L5-S1 disc 9+ years ago and was diagnosed back then with degenerative discs above that site. And today I live chronic pain-free and I'm able to exercise without making my pain worse. I put it all together in a guide for you to grab for free. fitnessforbackpain.com/pain-free training. First exercise is the meadow row. Really fun. I've been doing these a lot more lately and they're really comfortable to do even with a sensitive low back. Key thing to look for is how you are engaging your deep core. Brace, quick breathe out as if you're gonna get punched in the stomach. Tune the brace for the exercise and the weight that you're doing, but more importantly is remember to draw in that belly button. So we often kind of stop with the squeeze our abs. You have to make sure you're, without actually sucking in, pulling your belly button back towards your spine. Super important. Next thing is a neutral spine. Stay neutral, be comfortable. Don't feel like you have to be super rigid, but also just respect the fact that any kind of bending may cause sensitivity for you, so adjust accordingly. The third thing you wanna make sure you're doing is using the arm on the leg for support. This is gonna be a night and day difference if you were to just be standing there trying to support yourself on just your core strength. Use that arm, utilize it, really lean on it to give yourself that stability that you need, especially if you have a sensitive low back. And lastly is all about foot position. You wanna have a staggered stance when doing this, and I really enjoy having both of my feet pointing towards the direction that I'm facing. Instead of having my back leg tilted sideways, it feels kind of weird and it kind of adds some torque on the low back that just isn't necessary. So adjust, play around with it, but keep your feet pointing forward. Next up are the gorilla rows, another big favorite of mine. Very simple. They look like, oh, this is kind of like a bent over row, but I'm gonna show you some secrets on how to really do this to save the low back and not put so much pressure on it. Number one is all about where you are pushing and pulling from. So you've got 2 kettlebells side by side. The one that you are leaving on the ground while you're pulling up, the opposite of what you're working, push and drive and create stability into that kettlebell. So as you create that stability and you begin to row, your back is gonna feel great. It should not be taking on much load at all. Keeping the hips nice and square. We're not trying to twist and lift up with our hips. It's all in the back, so focus there. When it comes to weight distribution, just make sure your weight is back on your heels. The hips are loaded up, so when you go to lift off, you should not feel your low back kind of take over and you're almost feeling like you're gonna fall forward. If that's the case, the weight is way too far away. It's not over the center of gravity and your stability is really not there. So adjust. Everything should feel nice and balanced. The weight should be back on your heels and your hips should be able to support the majority of the weight that you're lifting. And lastly, a big thing that I see messed up a lot with exercise are the transitions. That's the time between you actually lifting off and pulling up and then going from being in a fully pulled up position to transitioning and then going back down and resting the kettlebell on the ground. Respect those 2 transitions. Popping into something, coming up and just kind of letting go and ripping it up and then letting it kind of float for a half a second and then catching it going back down. I know that's kind of like slow-moing what's actually going on, but essentially slow the transitions down. Bench supported rows are huge. They're a great variation to an alternative to the barbell bent over row. You can do single arm, double arm, you can do dumbbells, you can do kettlebells, you can do bands, whatever you wanna do, you can do it, just be creative. I like using the bench as a support because what I try to do is try to allow my body to relax and use the bench as the supporting structure. So not my back, not necessarily my core. I try to get into the habit of bracing my core and really engaging my deep core. Even though I'm on the bench, I want to kind of groove that good pattern. So I am bracing my abs, but I'm really trying to focus on not overcompensating and lifting from the low back trying to protect myself. Another thing I try to make sure I'm doing is have a wide stance on my feet. So I'm really really spread out on this bench. I have a good stability structure. So if I am choosing to go a little bit heavier, I've got one hand around that bench, and I also have my feet kind of set out to add some extra stability. So again, I can focus on the actual lift instead of trying to keep myself on the bench or from twisting or doing anything that might cause more pain. And last exercise are the scoop rows. Love this exercise as well. You're basically attaching a lighter band to some kind of fixed object like a squat rack or a door knob that you have in your local gym or wherever you're at. And I'm just doing a traditional kind of bench supported hands and knees type of bent over row. The difference is I'm really activating more of the lats and really engaging the muscles that I should be engaging. So obviously I'm gonna start with a good neutral position on the bench. I'm gonna have a good, nice brace, not just a quick breath out, but tuning it for the weight, as well as bringing that belly button towards that spine to really lock that deep core in. And I'm gonna slowly pull that weight, not just up where my elbows are kind of flaring, but I'm actually gonna pull it back towards my left or my right pocket. If you watch how I do it, my elbow doesn't go too high. I try to use my lats and pull, and as far as my lats will allow that weight to come back, that's as high as I'm gonna go. No momentum, slow transitions, and I'm respecting my body. So I'm gonna respect the weight that I use, making sure I'm not going too heavy, where I am forced to use momentum or lose control of the weight during each rep. All right, I hope you enjoyed those barbell bent over row alternatives. Be sure to grab that free pain-free training guide. You can get it at fitnessforbackpain.com/pain-free training. If you wanna dive deeper into maybe why your barbell bent over row is actually causing pain, like let's dive into some mistakes you're making and some quick fixes you can make to see a dramatic change in the way you experience any kind of pain during that specific exercise, check out the video you see displayed here.